Okay, I'm here this morning with Jamie Edenden, who is fighting September 20th at Invicta 57. It's her Invicta debut. She's taking on Abby Montes, who you might know is the only woman in combat sports to defeat Clarissa Shields. So a big name opponent on the other side. Jamie, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. Thanks. Good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, obviously we're based in here in the UK. People will hear your accent, but you've got ties over here as well, haven't you? So what's your background?
Yeah, so I was born in the UK in 1993. I was born in Dorset, England, and half of my family is still over there. So, I'm Australian, but I'm English too.
Yeah. So when did you move over to Australia?
I moved in 1996, so I was only a toddler when I moved over here.
Okay.
But yeah,
Yeah, because I've seen on some of your fight graphics and things like that. You've got the St. George's Cross on there, of course. So yeah, it's an interesting one because people will hear your accent and they're not going to necessarily think, oh, she's English. But yeah, when things like that, things like British fighters fighting on regional scenes abroad always fascinates me. So I always specifically try to interview these people like yourself, people like he's Irish, but Alan Philpott, who's fought for Eternal. There's a few. There seems to be a few that ended up on the Australian scene. Funnily enough.
yeah. I don't know how different my life would be if I was still there. I don't know if I'd be a fighter or not, but yeah, I like to stay true to my roots and represent both. So.
Yeah, we're only a week away from that Invicta debut now. Just we talked about it off recording. But just give us an insight how these next few days are going to look for you.
Yeah, so I'm traveling over to the States on Monday. So it's currently Friday evening here in Oz. So got a couple of days to continue training and I'm going to featherweight, which I haven't cut to featherweight in just under a year. So I've well and truly begun the cut down to featherweight. And I'll pack my bags and I'll be on my way soon.
Yeah, obviously your last fight was a catchweight, if I'm not mistaken. That's quite a 165 catchweight, which is quite a big jump back down to featherweight. I guess that's a case of just that's the division Invicta has. There's not many people bigger than that. What was the reasoning behind that catchweight first?
So the reason behind the catch rate was I was fighting a girl called Jenna Fabian,
Yeah.
and she fought in the PFL at lightweight. And I said that I could come up from featherweight to lightweight, and they turned down the fight and said they would only be able to do welterweight. Welterweight is a little bit too heavy for me, but we came to an agreement of a catch weight of 75 kilos, which is 165 pounds. I walk around at that weight, so for me it was a really kind of cool um, fight camp because I had a heap of energy, a heap of food. But unfortunately, I did have to sacrifice my weight to get the fight going. And yeah, she was the bigger girl on the night.
Yeah, but hey, you got the win over a former PFL girl, which obviously got you to this point. Abby Montes, like we said, is the opponent. She's gonna stand out to most people for that win over Clarissa Shields. But what are your thoughts on her in this matchup?
I'm actually really excited for it. I have never fought someone with her style. I've had 36 fights across three different sports, and I've never fought someone who has a forward aggressive style. I fought a couple of really good strikers who have really great footwork from cutting angles and going from different stances, but I've never fought someone who is just going to meet me in the middle. We're going to butt heads, and it's going to be really, really cool to fight someone of her caliber and her aggression because I've never done that before.
Yeah, you talked over the last few months about PFL, Bellator, like you wanted that to be an option for you. It hasn't happened, but obviously, you're coming off a win over Jenna Fabian, who used to be in PFL. You beat Janae Harding as well, who was formerly of Bellator for a long time. So it felt like the big opportunity was coming. Invicta is they're kind of a rebuilding. They had a few months off. It's kind of a new era for them. So how long ago was this opportunity presented to you?
Yeah, I wasn't to be honest, I wasn't aware that Invicta was really an option. Obviously, I've known about Invicta and I've followed Invicta basically my entire fight career because I've followed people like Megan Anderson and Chris Cyborg
Yeah.
and Carla Esparza and all those girls who have come from Invicta, but I didn't know that they were trying to rebuild their featherweight division. So I didn't really think it was an option for me. So my only place I could really go as a featherweight was to PFL Bellator.
Yeah.
And then I saw this article or something on Instagram about Invicta trying to build their featherweight division, and they had like 2 or 3 featherweight fights on the one card. And I said to my manager straight away, let's try and get on Invicta. This is insane. Like, this is so good. And then my manager got in contact with Shannon Knapp, who is the CEO of Invicta. And as soon as we got in contact with her, she was kind of like, yep, we want you on the show. We just don't know when and how we can make it work. For me being in Australia, it's quite not a hassle, but it's quite a lot that goes into it to get me over there because it's quite a long way. So in the end, they did some work and we ended up getting a contract and yeah, we're heading over.
Yeah, I guess you mentioned obviously a few of those names there, but really countless names in like the biggest names of women's MMA, pretty much all coming through Invicta. So what does it mean to you to be able to be part of this new era and fight for them?
It's a very it's a bit of a surreal feeling because I've been grinding on the scene for such a long time. So it feels kind of like I'm just going to be going and fighting on the local scene again. I don't think it's going to feel real until I'm there and I'm under the bright lights and I'm on this big stage. And but I feel very, very grateful to be given the opportunity because at my weight class, the opportunities are very few and far between. Especially in Australia, there's not that many girls, and I'm really grateful to be given this opportunity on such a great show as Invicta. You know, Shannon's done such a great job of building this all female promotion, and it is an absolute privilege to be on it.
Right, and like you say, in bringing you in from Australia, there's a few fighters over there from the UK now, or a couple at least. So they're not shy on bringing people in if they feel that's where the best talent is.
Mm. Yeah, for sure. I think, I'm the first Australian that's been signed to Invicta for a very, very, very long time, especially in my weight class. The last person was Megan Anderson, I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure. So that was such a long time ago. So it's an honor and I'm very proud of myself that I've worked my way up to being the number one in my country and being able to go over and fight the best in the world from other countries.
And you touched on it earlier, just I want to touch on this. You have bounced between MMA and boxing a little bit. Like you say, you had a boxing fight over here in the UK like last year, I believe. Or earlier this
At the
year,
start
maybe even. It was this year, yeah. Um, I guess how beneficial has it been for your MMA game to be able to do things like that on the side? Because obviously you see people do grappling matches, you see people like especially in the amateur career kind of take some Muay Thai fights as well. How beneficial do you feel that was to be able to do that while also being such a high level in your MMA game?
Yeah, I mean, well, MMA is my dream and my passion and my purpose, but unfortunately, and I want to be active. I want to stay as active as possible, and I want to fight in MMA 3 to 4 times a year. And unfortunately, there's just not enough people in my region to be able to do that. So I decided to take some boxing fights initially. And honestly, you can see the difference in my game with my head movement, my stance, how I throw my punches. It has evolved my game from my very first MMA fight to now. The boxing training has just done wonders for it. In terms of Muay Thai, I did take a Muay Thai fight recently just because I couldn't get anything across the line, and I took it because it was such a cool opportunity. I got to travel to New Zealand and meet some really cool people. I got to fight their number one girl. It didn't come away with the win, but I had such a good time over there and had a lot of fun. But now that I've been signed to this big promotion, and I'm traveling over to the States, this is the main goal. So I'm going to stick with MMA now till the end of my career.
Yeah. And obviously you mentioned developing your game since taking that boxing fight, but the last time we saw you in the cage was in May. And I always like to talk about this development. So what's going to be different about the Jamie Edenden stepping into the cage next week in Invicta versus the girl that we saw fight Jenna Fabian back in May?
Yeah, so with Jenna, I was really struggling to find my range. I'm known as a striker, and I just couldn't find my range with her. I couldn't land, and she obviously was a lot bigger than me and a bit
Yeah.
and stronger because of her size. But I've been working with my striking coaches on my distance and my timing of my shots as well. But I'm always working my grappling. That is my weakest part of my game is my grappling. But if you asked me 2 years ago, I would have said my grappling is shit. But now my grappling and my wrestling are actually at a really good level, and I'm really confident with it. Obviously, I'm always improving. I'm not saying I'm the best grappler in the world, but I can definitely hang and be on the world stage, knowing that and being confident in my skills.
Yeah. And just one more on Invicta. The one thing that will come with Invicta in Kansas City is open scoring. What are your thoughts on that? Have you had experiences with something similar before?
I actually didn't know that there would be open scoring, but I have been saying for years and years and years and years and years that we need open
Yeah, I mean,
scoring.
don't necessarily take my word fully for that, but I know Invicta in Kansas City recently they have been trialing it, so
Yeah,
that's more of an
I think
assumption that there will be open scoring on this fight.
it, I think it's great because I have been on the raw end of some really bad deals, some really bad scores, and sometimes I think like surely I was winning that fight, like or the people at home they could see where we're at, and I think that's really great, and if they're going to do that, that is such a game changer.
Yeah, I mean, they've used it on their podcast before. They flash up the little graphic between rounds. Yeah, it just as fans, it's interesting as well because like combat sports is the only sport where you don't know the score, if that makes
Mm,
sense. It's yeah,
yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, yeah, and like there's people for it, there's people against it, but I think it works well. Um, I have a quick fire segment, so I'm just gonna throw some quick fire questions at you.
yep.
Okay, favorite food.
Every single food that ever is to exist is my favorite food, but I do love sushi and I love ice cream.
Okay, favorite drink.
Coffee,
Favorite breakfast cereal.
Milo,
What's that? I don't know what that is. That must be an Australian one that we don't have over here.
the Milo cereal. It's like a little chocolate. It's hard to explain, but it's delicious.
For favorite food, I thought you were gonna say Snickers.
I do love Snickers. I do love Snickers, but my go-to is definitely ice cream or sushi.
What's the story behind that as the nickname?
It's kind of a long story, but I'll kind of do the short version. I used to joke around with all my friends, and I used to say I'm thicker than a Snicker, and then I met my manager, and I was like, oh, thicker than a Snicker, like on weigh-in day, and I was completely like shredded and depleted. I'm like, I'm thicker than a Snicker, and then he got me some shorts made for my first boxing fight that had Snickers on the front of it, and I was like, that's so cool. That's my new fight name. So that's just kind of how it came about.
Right, perfect. Favorite movie,
Burlesque,
favorite TV show,
The Vampire Diaries,
favorite musician,
The Red Hot Chili Peppers.
favorite sport other than MMA.
Oh, that's a hard one. Do you mean to participate in or to watch?
To watch, or whichever you want to take it, it's fine.
God, that's hard. Oh, I don't know. I'm gonna say my favorite thing is probably swimming. I do love swimming, and I like watching swimming at the Olympics. So I'm gonna say that.
Okay. Favorite fight.
Of all time,
We'll do one of all time and one of your own.
okay. My favorite fight to watch of all time is definitely Zhang Weili and Joanna Young Jacek.
Yeah,
That was for the title fight. That was one of the best fights I've ever seen. And also any Justin Gaethje fight.
yeah,
And my favorite fight of my own is definitely the one of me versus Janae Harding. Um, that kind of was the start of my role and the start of me believing that I truly deserve to be on the world stage and my best performance.
yeah. I mean, I think that that's kind of the first time you popped up on my radar because I think that was I think Janae was like just out of Bellator at the time, and that was like I think it was it her first fight back on the regional scene, and
That was her
then
first fight back after Bellator. Yeah.
yeah, and then you kind of controlled that one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Favorite fighter?
Valentina Shevchenko.
Are you excited for her fight this weekend?
Yes, I'm so pumped that it's a week out from my fight. It's just gonna, especially if she wins, it's just gonna light this fire up inside of me. So she's just so good, so good.
Yeah. Favorite submission to practice?
um, oh, you're talking to someone who doesn't like jujitsu. My favorite submission to practice. I'm gonna go head arm choke.
I mean, you took that too literally. I spoke to someone yesterday who just said elbows to the face. So
Yeah, like look, honestly, if I go for a submission in a fight, my coach better just completely, like, he better pay me or give me a belt because I always choose violence over submission.
I mean, yeah, I have your record to the side here while we're doing this. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes
Yeah.
sense. No submissions in sight.
Yeah.
Funniest person you've met in MMA.
uh, there's a guy in Australia who fights. His name's Jim Skillies. He's hilarious. So I'm gonna say him.
And the best piece of advice you've been given.
The best piece of advice I was ever given is get a better team. I had it took me a long time to find a really good dietitian, a really good strength coach, and I was messing around for a really long time, not taking it seriously. So that yeah, the best piece of advice it was just get a better team, and now I have the best team, so it worked.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it worked. You took it and it worked. That's all. I want to thank you for taking the time today, Jamie. Invicta 57, September 20th. It's where you can see her take on Abby Montes. CBS Sports in the US. Here in the UK, it's a YouTube pay-per-view, but it's only 99p. So like there's not really any excuse. I assume that is that the same in Australia, the YouTube pay-per-view deal?
I think it's on YouTube. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty
Yeah,
sure it's
cool.
YouTube. I'll find out when I get over there. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Just finally, when yourself, Abby Montes, step into the cage, what can the people expect?
Excitement. They can accept a absolute war. I don't think that they're going to see a featherweight fight like this where there's two aggressive, hungry, strong females coming forward at each other. So it's going to be entertaining.
Yeah, I like the sound of that. I think this is the fight I'm most looking forward to on this card. So yeah, thanks for taking the time. Best of luck. Looking
Thank you
forward to it.
for having me.